Everybody, welcome back to Power Play on Wicked Good Sports. We're here as always with Chris Uminski. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. It's hot.
It's quite hot. If you missed out on our last episode, we're currently experiencing a heat wave that, well, quite frankly, Massachusetts people are just not built for this. We're built for snow, and it's brutal. So bear with us. If you see us sweating profusely, it's the heat, as they say in Portlandia. All right, Chris. This is not a super happy fun segment like we normally do. We usually come on here, shoot the shit about hockey, have a good time. This is kind of a darker thing, but I saw you had retweeted something that every sports journalist, which I would never say that I'm a sports journalist, but I think if you have a platform at all, even with just like a small one that we have, we should talk about it. So, Chris, can you tell me a little bit about what's going on with the Chicago Blackhawks and a former employee of theirs?
So, about a month ago, stories started to come out of the Blackhawks organization that a former coach had been accused of sexual assault by a couple of former players.
Mm.
So, story as I understand it was that it was happening in 2010
Mm.
during the Blackhawks Cup run that year.
Right.
And stories that during the series with, I think it must have been San Jose, during the series with San Jose, a couple of players went to Paul Vincent, who was the skills coach at the time for the Blackhawks, just a member of the coaching staff, and accused another member of the coaching staff, Brad Aldrich, of inappropriate behavior.
Mm.
For the sake of keeping it PG-13, I'm not going to go into detail, but it is. And story from there goes. So this coach has been accused. Coach Vincent decides, okay, I need to tell somebody. So he goes to the general manager
Mm.
and to the president of the team and the owners and says, I just found this out.
Mm.
What do we do from here? Do we make a police report? Do we try to deal with it internally? Do we try to... What do we do? And I guess the story is that whoever was in the room that night, we're still learning stuff. I only found out Paul Vincent's name
Mm.
a couple of hours ago.
Right.
That because that was only released a couple of hours ago.
Mm.
That the story was they decided we cannot go to the police. It's embarrassing for our organization,
Mm.
and it's embarrassing for the NHL, and it's not a good look. It not being 2021 at the time.
Sure.
So that was big part of the attitude that they had.
Mm.
And this is all going on around the same time too that Blackhawks star Patrick Kane was accused of rape.
Right.
That's a whole other. That speaks more to the Blackhawks culture, which is a whole other
Mm.
conversation.
Right.
So, what the Blackhawks decide to do is they're going to try to deal with it internally.
Mm.
Fire Brad Aldrich, and they don't give a reason for doing it. They just announce at the end of the season that Brad Aldrich is leaving the team.
Mm.
And they wrote him a letter of recommendation so they could make sure he would get another job.
Mm.
He got a job working on the staff for a high school hockey team in Illinois,
Right.
where he was subsequently accused of sexually assaulting a 17-year-old,
Mm.
convicted and sent to prison.
Right.
He served, I think, a 9-month sentence, something like that.
Mm.
Meanwhile, there's still rumors in the Blackhawks organization that this guy had been assaulting players, basically.
Right.
I just read an article on The Athletic, and the player who was quoted, they didn't give his name, it was anonymous.
Mm.
Right now, we do not know any of the players who were involved. That's important to know. We don't know who's come forward, if they're still playing for the Blackhawks,
Right,
if
right.
they're still in the league. We don't know who it was. But I guess the story is that it was an open secret within the organization.
Right. And they
That,
still gave
that
this
this
guy a letter of recommendation
that,
for his
that
next
this is all
job.
going on. Aldrich, when he gets out of prison, still gets jobs with college hockey programs. He coached for University of Miami for a little while, and he left there after receiving some accusations. So the big thing that is upsetting a lot of people, including me, is who knew what was going on and why didn't they say anything? The league, did Gary Bettman, the commissioner, know anything? He did like a press conference today with the president of the Blackhawks, and they said we're looking into it. The Blackhawks today hired an internal investigator, like a third party to go in under Bettman.
So I guess obviously this is like a horrible story. Heart goes out to all the victims in this scenario. It does surprise me, like, if this was an open secret, that they gave him a letter of recommendation, like, didn't even like warn, other people that this was a thing. And I mean, I don't think it's unfair to say that allowed him to get into positions to victimize more people. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out here in this investigation, if it's going to be like a serious, big one with this third party, and if there's any punishment, because I don't know how you feel, but I definitely feel like there should be like something.
I absolutely feel that way. The press conference today, when I was listening to it, that was actually one of the questions I was asked to the commissioner is, what punishment could the league impose upon the Blackhawks organization, upon Brad Aldrich, who is currently being sued by one of his victims at the high school he coached at. And a part of the lawsuit is this letter of recommendation he got from the Blackhawks. So the Blackhawks are being dragged into this lawsuit as well, and that's sort of how this all really started to come to light.
Right. I mean, that of course makes a lot of sense. I mean,
yeah.
Once you start pulling the threads, I'm sure it all comes unraveled. But yeah, this is I mean, certainly there are situations like this in all sports, but it was extremely surprising to me when the news broke, when he sent me like the article about it, and I was reading about it, that not only did the Blackhawks know, or like people knew in the organization, but as you said, it was like an open secret, and they still recommended him and got him into positions to where he could, further victimize people. That's really dark, and
I can tell you, I would like to see the league do something. No matter what the investigation turns up, the Blackhawks organization needs some kind of a reprimand, fine, anything from the league, just to show that it's not okay that they allowed this to happen to their teammates, their players. And for all we know, it affected their performance.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like to think, their first impulse was like, we got to cover this up, like not to like get justice for any victims, but they're like, this reflects badly, so we need to wash our hands of it. So, I mean, there's not much more to say. Guy's a fucking piece of shit. Should probably still be in jail.
He should still be in prison. I would like to see the league ban him from hockey the same way that, I don't know, like Pete Rose is banned from baseball. I'd love to see even something as symbolic as that would be better than nothing. Yeah.
No, I think that wouldn't be too much to ask. Obviously, it's hard, and all the victims in this case deserve privacy. I know that's probably like one of the things, like, who are the people, but you got to remember, like, it's just society, I think, is better at dealing with these things now than, like you said, in 2010. I think people are more sensitive to the issue and kind of understand like it's important that the victims get justice. It's not necessarily important for us to know every detail of everything. So
Yeah.
it's just a dark story, but like you talked about, I do think it's important to bring up and to talk about because it's a weird. It'd be a weird thing to be like, oh, we do a hockey show, and not address it. You know what I mean?
Right. And this is, I personally think this should be the biggest story across all of sports right now. And
Mm.
really, it's only started getting traction today. I've noticed it's been sort of overshadowed by the Stanley Cup Finals happening, stuff going on in basketball too. They're in their playoffs. Baseball is back.
Yep.
Coming up on football season. Everyone's so distracted by all these other things that this sort of got swept under the rug. At least in American media, it did. I don't know what's going on
Right.
everywhere else, or even I haven't looked at a lot of the Chicago media either, so I don't even know how much they're really covering this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we definitely wanted to do our small part and provide a small platform to talk about it and to obviously like if there are people out there who've been victimized, hopefully they feel comfortable enough to come out now that some other people have come out. I know that's often like a thing where like people aren't comfortable coming out and admitting that this happened, but then hopefully once they see other people do so, they can feel more comfortable doing that and add to the case against this guy because yeah, like I said, it's a huge piece of shit and it's never should have happened, especially after it happened at the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So I don't know, anything else you want to add to this one? I know it's not like you said at the top, it's not one of those high energy pumped up ones, but an important one nonetheless.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't have anything else really to add.
All right. I think I'll skip the main outro. You know where to find us online. We'll have the Twitter handles down there. You know where to find the channel. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.